Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're tackling a really interesting question. It actually came directly from you, the listener.
Oh, yeah. What's on the table?
It's about the number 49. What's the story there? And how does it link up with Christian Jubilees?
Okay. Interesting.
And then there's this phrase, Pope Jubilee generation. What does that actually mean?
Right. Got it. So 49 Jubilees
Mhm.
and this generational idea.
Exactly. We've got some pretty fascinating material, historical stuff on biblical cycles, how Catholic Jubilees evolved.
And some digging into that Pope Jubilee generation term, presumably.
Yes. So the goal really is to unpack all this, figure out why it matters, especially, with the 2025 Jubilee coming up.
And make sense of how it all fits together. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Let's dive in.
Okay. So starting with 49, what's the significance?
Well, the foundational text, as our sources point out, is really Leviticus
Yeah.
chapter 25.
Leviticus 25.
Verses 8 to 13. It lays out this whole concept of a Jubilee year. It happens every 50th year.
Right, the 50th year. But the key is how you get to that 50th year, isn't it? It's not just counting to 50.
Exactly. That's where 49 comes in. The research really highlights this. It comes after a 49-year cycle.
Ah, okay. And how's that calculated?
So the text explains it's based on completing 7 sabbatical cycles.
Sabbatical cycles. Like the Sabbath day.
Kind of analogous, yeah. Each cycle is 7 years long. So you take 7 years, multiply by 7 cycles.
And you get 49. Simple math, but profound meaning, I guess.
Precisely. 49 years.
So for nearly 5 decades, these 7-year periods tick by. Then comes the 50th year, the Jubilee itself. What actually happens then?
Well, the sources describe it as a time of pretty deep spiritual and social renewal, like a massive reset.
Your reset. In what way?
Key things include canceling debts, big one, freeing people who were enslaved or in servitude,
Wow, okay.
and restoring ancestral land back to its original family owners.
That's huge. It
Yeah.
sounds like a complete rebalancing of society.
It really does. The broader idea is it symbolizes God's mercy, justice, repairing community bonds, a fresh start.
Makes sense. Now, beyond just the calculation, does 49 itself have like a symbolic meaning in Christian thinking?
Oh, absolutely. Numbers often do, right?
Yep.
In Christian numerology, 7 is a really significant number.
Yeah. Divine order, completion, the 7 days of creation, that kind of thing.
Exactly that. So if 7 is completion, then 49 being 7 times 7, well, that's often seen as signifying a kind of double completeness.
Yeah.
Or perfection, even.
Double completion, so it's like extra complete.
You could say that. It makes it a really fitting number to come right before a year of such major renewal like the Jubilee. It's the ultimate preparation, symbolically speaking.
Okay, got it. So 49 is biblically rooted, symbolically weighty, the run-up to transformation. Now, let's switch gears a bit. How did this Jubilee idea actually play out in the Catholic Church? Because the timing changed, didn't it?
Oh, definitely. It's actually quite interesting how the frequency evolved. The first sort of formal Christian Jubilee wasn't until 1300, Pope Boniface VIII.
1300. And how often was it meant to happen then?
Initially, every 100 years.
A whole century. That feels like a very long wait between resets.
It does, yeah. And, well, it didn't stay that way for too long.
What changed?
By 1342, Pope Clement VI cut it down significantly
Nah.
to every 50 years.
50 years, bringing it closer to that Leviticus model.
Exactly. The material suggests that was precisely the reason to align more closely with the biblical cycle we were just talking about, echoing that ancient tradition.
Makes sense, tying it back to the roots. But it didn't stick at 50 either, did it? I feel like I remember reading something else.
No, you're right. It kept evolving.
Yeah.
In 1389, Pope Urban VI actually floated the idea of a 33-year cycle.
Kept 33 years. Why that number?
The thinking seems to be it was meant to reflect the traditional lifespan of Christ on earth.
Oh, interesting connection. But that didn't become standard.
No, it seems it wasn't consistently followed. The more lasting change came a bit later, in 1470.
Okay, 1470. What happened then?
That's when Pope Paul II essentially set the standard that's mostly used today for what they call ordinary jubilees.
And that is
Every 25 years.
25. Okay, so that's the regular rhythm now. But you said ordinary jubilees. Are there other kinds?
Yes, exactly. The sources distinguish those from extraordinary jubilees.
Right. Tell me about those.
So an extraordinary jubilee can be announced by the Pope for a specific, significant reason or occasion outside that 25-year cycle.
Like a special event.
Yeah. A good recent example mentioned is the Jubilee of Mercy. Pope Francis called that for 2015 to 2016.
I remember that.
Yeah.
So there's the standard 25-year beat, but also flexibility for special ones.
Precisely. So you see the journey, 100 years, down to 50, a proposed 33, settling on 25 for the regular ones, plus these extraordinary ones.
Okay, quite a historical path. Now let's bring it to the present, the upcoming 2025 Jubilee. How does this fit into everything we've discussed, especially that 50-year biblical idea?
All right, this is where it gets really compelling, I think. The 2025 Jubilee. Pope Francis announced it with a papal bull that's like a formal decree called Space Non-Confunded.
Hope does not disappoint.
That's the one. It's technically an ordinary Jubilee, fitting into that 25-year pattern. However,
There's a however.
yes, it also happens to fall exactly 50 years after the 1975 Jubilee.
No way. 50 years on the dot.
Exactly 50 years. The 1975 one was the Holy Year of Reconciliation under Pope Paul VI.
Wow. So even though the standard is 25 years, this particular one lines up perfectly with the original 50-year biblical cycle.
Precisely. Think about it. 1975 to 2024. That's 49 years.
The 7 times 7 cycle completion we talked about.
Right, leading directly into the 50th year, 2025, which is designated the Jubilee of Hope. It's a really remarkable convergence.
It really underscores the historical weight of this upcoming year, connecting it way back. Okay, so this naturally leads us to that phrase that kicked this all off, Pope Jubilee generation.
Right, the listener's question.
Yeah. Based on everything we've looked at, what's the likely meaning?
Well, first off, the research is pretty clear. It's not an official term. You won't find it in, formal church documents.
Okay, so it's more informal, descriptive.
Seems that way.
Yeah.
But the evidence strongly suggests it refers to Catholics who live through multiple Jubilees, but not just any Jubilees.
What's the specific connection then?
It seems to point especially to those whose experience spans a really significant time frame, one that mirrors that full biblical cycle.
So like the 50-year span we just identified.
Exactly. The clearest example would be someone who experienced the 1975 Jubilee.
And is now here for the 2025 Jubilee. That covers the full 50 years.
Precisely. That interval seems key. And there's even a mention of Pope John Paul II after the big Jubilee in 2000.
Yeah.
He apparently commented that the young people participating then would be the leaders in the church come 2025.
So drawing a direct line, a generational link, specifically between those Jubilee years.
Exactly. It reinforces this idea of a generation connected by these major church events focused on renewal and hope, happening under different popes, but marking these significant cycles.
Especially that 50-year cycle from 75 to 25. It's about sharing that specific long arc experience.
That seems to be the core of it, yes. The 50-year duration, echoing the 49 years leading up to the biblical Jubilee, feels like the crucial element. It's a generation defined by those specific touchstones.
And underpinning all of this, really, is that passage in Leviticus we started with.
Absolutely. Leviticus 25.813, it's the blueprint.
It lays out the whole 50-year cycle, the 49-year lead-up.
The 7 sabbatical cycles, yeah. And it details those core actions. Forgiveness, freeing people, returning land, all symbolizing God's mercy.
And the numbers themselves, 7 and 49, as we said, they're packed with meaning.
Right. 7 for divine order, rest, completion, and 49, 7 times 7, that sort of amplified completion or perfection, setting the stage for renewal. It all ties together quite neatly, actually.
Yeah, it really does. Okay, so let's quickly recap. We've seen 49 is significant, biblically. It completes the cycles before the Jubilee year.
Right, the 7 by 7 structure.
We tracked how the Catholic Church's Jubilee timing changed over centuries, from 100 years down to the current 25 for ordinary ones.
But noting that this 2025 Jubilee has that unique 50-year alignment back to 1975.
Exactly, echoing the original biblical cycle. And this Pope Jubilee generation, while not official, likely points to Catholics who've lived through that specific 1975 to 2025 50-year span of major church renewal events.
That seems the most plausible interpretation based on the sources, yeah. It connects the historical practice with the lived experience.
This has been genuinely fascinating. It's amazing how these ancient ideas still resonate.
It really is, seeing how these traditions persist and find new relevance, new layers of meaning in the modern church.
Absolutely. And for you listening, we hope this deep dive gave you that quick but, thorough understanding you were looking for. Hopefully a few aha moments in there.
Yeah, connecting the dots between the numbers, the history, and that generational idea.
So as you think about all this, the cycles, the jubilees, the generations, here's a final thought to maybe mull over. If these religious traditions hold such deep meaning across long stretches of time, what other cycles or recurring big events, maybe even secular ones in our shared history, might hold a similar kind of profound, maybe often overlooked significance, shaping how we think about renewal and hope from one generation to the next?
That's a really interesting question to ponder. What else echoes across time like that?
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.